Lieutenant Jack Marrow survived 22 bombing runs without a scratch. Then Mission 23 changed everything. His B-24 took fire over the Pacific and went down hard. 3 men hit the water, 2 chocolate bars, 8 tins of water, no beacon. They drifted 47 days through shark attacks and storms, squeezing rainwater from shirts to survive. When a ship appeared, it flew the enemy flag. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The briefing room smelled like coffee and diesel fuel at 4:30 in the morning. Jack Marrow sat in the 3rd row, flight jacket draped over his chair, listening to Commander Hayes outline the mission with a pointer tapping against a map of the Pacific. Nauru Island, Japanese supply depot. 800 miles out, 800 miles back. Simple run. Weather's clear, Hayes said. Intel says light anti-aircraft presence. You'll hit the depot, swing back, and be drinking warm beer by 1400 hours. Someone in the back whistled. 22 missions had made Jack's crew cocky. They'd earned it. Not a single man lost, not a scratch on any of them. Jack glanced at Russell Phillips, his bombardier, who was studying the target photos with the intensity of a man reading scripture. Phillips checked everything 3 times. It's what made him good. 23, McNamara muttered from Jack's left. Unlucky number. You're always finding omens, Jack said. Last week it was a black cat. Week before that, you saw 3 magpies. And we had engine trouble both times. We had engine trouble because we're flying a B-24 that's held together with hope and rivets. Jack stood as Hayes dismissed them. Let's fly. The Pacific stretched out before them at dawn. Endless blue meeting, endless blue at a horizon that never seemed to get closer. Jack had flown this route so many times he could do it blind. Funafuti to Nauru, drop the payload, turn around, home for lunch. The B-24 Liberator hummed beneath him, all 4 engines running smooth. He checked the gauges out of habit. Oil pressure, good. Fuel, good. Altitude holding at 8,000 feet. Phillips' voice crackled through the intercom. Target in sight, 15 minutes. Copy that. Jack adjusted course, bringing them in on the approach vector. Below, Nauru Island appeared as a dark smudge against the ocean. Small, unremarkable. Just another dot of land that Japan had decided mattered enough to defend. The anti-aircraft fire started at 10 minutes out. Black puffs of smoke blooming in the air around them, each one marking a shell that had missed by yards or feet. Jack held the plane steady. Phillips needed a stable platform for the bombing run. You didn't jink and weave until after the bombs dropped. Steady, Phillips said. Steady. Bomb bay doors open. Jack felt the plane shudder as the bay doors slid apart. 5 more seconds. 3. The plane lurched upward as 2,000 pounds of ordnance fell away toward the supply depot below. Phillips's voice came through calm and clear. Bombs away, direct hit. Jack banked hard left, starting the turn for home. That's when engine number 2 coughed. Just a small sound, barely noticeable over the roar of the other 3. Then it coughed again. Black smoke started trailing from the cowling. We've got a problem, Jack said into the intercom. The engine seized. The propeller locked in place, and suddenly they were flying on 3 engines instead of 4. The B-24 could handle that. They'd trained for it. Jack compensated, adjusting trim and throttle. Then engine number 3 died. 2 engines couldn't keep a fully loaded B-24 in the air. Basic physics. Jack knew it the second he felt the 3rd engine quit. The nose dropped. The altimeter needle started spinning counterclockwise. 8,000 feet, 7,500, 7,000. Brace for ditching, Jack said. His voice sounded steady, professional, like he'd practiced this 100 times in training. He had, but training never mentioned the way your hands would shake or how your mind would simultaneously slow down and speed up, calculating a dozen things at once while time stretched like taffy. Phillips's voice came through the intercom. How long do we have? Jack checked the altimeter again. 6,000 feet. The ocean was coming up fast, looking deceptively calm from altitude. 3 minutes, maybe 4. Get the life rafts ready. Mac was already moving in the back, pulling the emergency raft packages from their storage compartments. Good. At least his superstitions had made him prepare for the worst. Jack fought the controls, trying to keep the nose up, trying to bleed off speed without stalling. Too fast and they'd cartwheel. Too slow and they'd drop like a stone. 5,000 feet. The remaining two engines screamed under full throttle, but they couldn't fight gravity, not with half the power plant dead. Jack reached for the radio, thumbing the transmit button. Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is Army Air Force 294 going down. Position approximately 12 miles southeast of Nauru Island. Static answered him. He tried again. Same result. The radio was dead. Maybe it had taken damage from the anti-aircraft fire. Maybe the electrical system was failing along with everything else. Didn't matter now. 4,000 feet. Life vests on, Jack ordered. Secure everything loose. Phillips, get ready to blow the top hatch the second we stop moving. Copy. 3,000 feet. Jack could see individual waves now. The Pacific wasn't calm at all. Swells rolled across the surface, 3 feet high, maybe 4. Landing parallel to them would flip the plane. Landing perpendicular would tear the fuselage apart. He needed to time it perfectly. Touchdown in a trough between swells with the wings level and the nose high. 2,000 feet, 1,500, 1,000. Here we go, Jack said. He pulled back on the yoke, raising the nose, feeling the plane shudder and buck. The stall warning horn blared. 500 feet. The ocean filled the windscreen, blue and white and impossibly close. 200 feet, 100. The tail hit first. Good. Exactly what he wanted. The impact drove Jack forward against his harness hard enough to knock the wind from his lungs. Water exploded over the cockpit windows. The plane skipped like a stone, nose down now, and hit again. This time, the fuselage screamed in protest, metal tearing somewhere behind him. The deceleration slammed Jack against the controls. His head connected with something hard. Stars burst across his vision, then silence. Just the sound of water rushing in. Jack's vision cleared slowly. Blood ran down his forehead into his eyes. Salt water was pouring through the shattered windscreen, already up to his waist and rising fast. He fumbled with his harness, fingers clumsy, and the buckle finally released. The cockpit tilted forward at a steep angle. The nose was going under. "Phillips!" Jack shouted. "Mac! Here!" Phillips appeared in the cockpit doorway, water streaming from his flight suit. His left shoulder hung at an odd angle. Dislocated. "Mac's got the rafts. We need to move." Jack grabbed the survival kit from beneath his seat. The water was chest high now, shockingly cold despite the tropical sun overhead. He pushed through it, following Phillips toward the rear of the fuselage where Mac was wrestling with the emergency hatch. The plane groaned around them, settling deeper. They had seconds. Mac got the hatch open. Sunlight and ocean poured in simultaneously. He threw one raft package through the opening, then the other. "Go, go, go!" Phillips went first, diving through the hatch into open water. Jack followed, the survival kit clutched tight against his chest. The impact of hitting the ocean drove the air from his lungs. He surfaced, gasping, and looked back in time to see Mac jump. Behind him, the B-24's tail rose into the air like a monument. Then it slid beneath the surface with barely a ripple. Gone. Just like that. 23 missions and it was just gone. The rafts. Phillips was swimming toward the yellow packages, floating 30 feet away. Jack followed, his flight boots heavy as anchors, his leather jacket soaked through and trying to drag him down. Mac splashed past both of them, swimming with frantic strokes. They reached the first package. Jack pulled the inflation cord. Nothing happened. He pulled again, harder. The raft burst from the package with a hiss of compressed air, unfolding into a tiny rubber island barely 6 feet long. Mac already had the second one inflating. Phillips was treading water, his bad arm useless, face pale with pain. "In," Jack ordered. "Both of you now." Getting Phillips into the raft took all three of them. His shoulder made him scream when they hauled him over the side. Mac scrambled in after him. Jack pushed the survival kit up, then dragged himself aboard, arms shaking with effort. He collapsed in the bottom of the raft, chest heaving. For a long moment, nobody spoke. They just lay there soaking wet, breathing hard, staring up at the blue sky that had almost killed them. Finally, Mac said, "I told you 23 was unlucky." Jack started laughing. He couldn't help it. It was either laugh or scream, and laughing seemed like the better option. Phillips joined in, then Mac, all three of them laughing like madmen in a 6-foot raft in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The laughter died quickly. Jack sat up and took inventory. 1 survival kit, 2 rafts, 3 men, no radio, no rescue beacon, and land was 800 miles away. "Okay," Jack said, "let's see what we've got." Jack opened the survival kit with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. He laid everything out in the bottom of the raft, counting each item twice. 2 chocolate bars wrapped in wax paper, 8 half-pint tins of water, a small first aid kit with bandages and iodine, fishing line and hooks, a signal mirror, 6 flare shells and a flare gun, a compass, a knife. That's it. Max stared at the meager pile. "That's supposed to keep us alive." "It's what we've got." Jack picked up one of the water tins. Half a pint, maybe 8 ounces. He did the math in his head. 8 tins total, 64 ounces, less than 2 liters for 3 men in the tropical sun. "We ration everything, no exceptions." Phillips cradled his bad arm against his chest. "How long until they find us?" Jack wanted to lie, wanted to say rescue would come tomorrow, that search planes were probably already looking for them. But Phillips deserved the truth. "We went down off course. Radio was dead. They don't know where we are." "So we could be out here for days," Max said. "Or weeks." Jack met his eyes. "We survive 1 hour at a time. That's the only way through this." Jack opened the survival kit with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. He laid everything out in the bottom of the raft, counting each item twice. 2 chocolate bars wrapped in wax paper, 8 half-pint tins of water, a small first aid kit with bandages and iodine, fishing line and hooks, a signal mirror, 6 flare shells and a flare gun, a compass, a knife, a patch kit for the rafts. "That's it." Max stared at the meager pile. "That's supposed to keep us alive." "It's what we've got." Jack picked up one of the water tins. Half a pint, maybe 8 ounces. He did the math in his head. 8 tins total, 64 ounces, less than 2 quarts for 3 men under the equatorial sun. At 2 ounces per man per day, they had maybe 5 days of water. After that, they'd be drinking their own urine or dying of thirst. "We ration everything, no exceptions." Phillips cradled his bad arm against his chest. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the ocean breeze. "How long until they find us?" Jack wanted to lie, wanted to say rescue would come tomorrow, that search planes were already looking for them. But Phillips deserved the truth. They all did. "We went down 12 miles off course. Radio was dead. They don't know exactly where we are." "So we could be out here for days," Max said. "Or weeks." Jack met his eyes. "We survive 1 hour at a time. That's the only way through this." He used the iodine and bandages to clean the gash on his forehead, then examined Phillips's shoulder. The joint was definitely dislocated, the ball of the humerus sitting wrong in the socket. Phillips would need it reset or the arm would be useless. Jack had seen it done in training, but never performed it himself. "This is going to hurt," Jack said. "Everything already hurts." Phillips lay back in the raft. "Just do it." Jack braced his foot against Phillips' ribs and gripped his wrist. "On 3, 1, 2. He pulled hard and twisted. Phillips screamed. The shoulder popped back into place with a sound like a knuckle cracking. Phillips went pale, breath coming in short gasps. But when Jack checked the joint, it sat properly in the socket. "You bastard," Phillips managed. "You said on 3. If I'd counted to 3, you would have tensed up." Jack fashioned a sling from Phillips's shirt. "Better now than waiting." The sun was directly overhead, had to be near noon. They'd been in the water maybe an hour. Jack looked around at 360 degrees of empty ocean. No land, no ships, no planes. Just water and sky meeting at a horizon that looked impossibly far away. Mac opened one of the chocolate bars and bit off a piece. "What are you doing?" Jack lunged for him, but Mac had already swallowed. "I'm hungry. We've got 2 bars, that's enough." "Those bars are our only food." Jack's voice came out harder than he intended. "We make them last, or we starve." Mac's face flushed red. "I took 1 bite. 1 bite. We're not going to starve from 1 bite." "We might." Jack wrapped the chocolate bar back in its wax paper and secured it in the survival kit. His hands were shaking again, but this time from anger instead of adrenaline. Each bar has maybe 400 calories, split 3 ways over days. That's barely enough to keep our bodies functioning. You just ate a day's worth of food in one bite. Jesus, Jack, I didn't think. That's the problem. You can't not think out here. Every decision matters. Jack forced himself to take a breath. Getting angry wouldn't help. They needed to work together, or they'd all die. From now on, we agree on everything. Water, food, all of it. Agreed. Mac nodded slowly. Philip said, agreed. The afternoon stretched out long and hot. The sun turned the rubber rafts into ovens. Jack's lips started cracking within the first 2 hours. His tongue felt thick and swollen. They'd opened 1 tin of water and divided it into 3 equal portions, 2 ounces each. It barely wet their mouths. We need to tie the rafts together, Jack said around 4 o'clock. If we drift apart at night, we'll never find each other. They used the parachute cord from the survival kit, knotting it tight between the raft's rope handles. The 2 rafts floated about 6 feet apart, close enough to talk, but far enough that waves wouldn't smash them together. Phillips tried to fish. He baited the hook with a piece of chocolate and lowered it over the side. The line went down 50 feet before Jack stopped him. Save the line. We don't know how deep it is here. Fish have to eat something. Not chocolate. Jack scanned the water. It was impossibly blue, so clear he could see 30 feet down. Nothing moved except the occasional piece of debris from their plane. A seat cushion, part of a wing panel, his logbook, pages spreading like a fan as it sank. The sun started its descent toward the horizon. Max suddenly sat up straight. There. Did you see that? See what? In the water. Something big. Mac pointed starboard. Right there. Jack saw it then. A dark shape moving beneath the surface, maybe 15 feet down. It was long, very long. As it turned, a dorsal fin broke the surface for just a moment before sliding back under. Shark, Philip said quietly. The fin appeared again, closer this time. Jack could make out the distinct shape now. Oceanic white tip, 7, maybe 8 feet long. The white tips on its fins caught the late afternoon sun as it circled their position. Don't move, Jack said. Don't put your hands in the water. Don't splash. It's just looking, right? Mac's voice had gone high and tight. It's just curious. The shark circled again. Then another fin appeared, and another. Within 5 minutes, 3 sharks were circling the rafts in a slow, methodical pattern. They smell the plane, Philip said. The fuel, the oil, maybe blood from our injuries. They're investigating. The sharks circled for an hour. Jack counted 7 of them now, ranging from 5 to 10 feet long. They moved with an efficiency that was almost beautiful, cutting through the water in perfect arcs. Every few minutes, one would dive deep and disappear, only to resurface on the opposite side of the rafts. They're testing us, Jack said, trying to figure out what we are. What happens when they figure it out? Mac hadn't moved in 20 minutes. His knuckles were white where he gripped the raft's rope handles. Hopefully nothing. We're not their usual prey. Too big. Too strange. Jack kept his voice calm even though his heart was hammering. Just stay still. Let them get bored. The sun touched the horizon. In the tropics, darkness came fast. 15 minutes from sunset to full night. The sharks were still there, still circling. Jack could see their shapes in the water, dark shadows against darker water. Something bumped Mac's raft from below. Mac yelped and jerked backward. The raft tilted dangerously. It hit me. It hit the raft. Don't move. Jack reached across the gap between rafts and grabbed Mac's arm. You're making it worse. Stay calm. Another bump, this time harder. The raft lifted 6 inches out of the water and dropped back down. Mac was hyperventilating now, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps. Phillips picked up one of the aluminum oars that had come with the survival kit. If it comes back, I'm hitting it. No! Jack's mind raced. Hitting a shark would only provoke it. But doing nothing while it tested their rafts wasn't an option either. The rubber was tough, but not indestructible. One good bite, and they'd be swimming. The largest shark surfaced 10 feet away. Its eye, black and emotionless, watched them. Then it dove. Jack saw it coming this time. A dark torpedo shape rising from below. It hit Mac's raft dead center, lifting it completely out of the water. Mac screamed. The raft crashed back down and the shark turned for another pass. "Hit it!" Jack shouted. Philip swung the oar as the shark surfaced. The aluminum connected with its snout with a hollow thunk. The shark twisted away, its tail thrashing the water into white foam. It dove deep. Silence. Jack counted to 60, then to 120. The other sharks had scattered when Philip struck. The water around them was empty. "Is it gone?" Mac's voice shook. Maybe it's just waiting." Jack scanned the darkening water. "We take shifts tonight. One person watches while the other two sleep. 2-hour shifts. I'll take first watch." Full darkness came. The stars appeared overhead, more stars than Jack had ever seen, so bright they reflected off the ocean surface. The moon was a thin crescent, barely enough light to see by. Jack sat in his raft with the oar across his knees, watching the water, listening for the sound of fins cutting the surface. Around midnight, he saw them return. 7 dark shapes circling in the starlight. They stayed deeper this time, more cautious, but they didn't leave. They were still there when Jack woke Phillips for the next watch. Day 2 started with Mac vomiting over the side of the raft. The heat, the constant motion of the waves, and fear had pushed him past his limit. Jack watched helplessly as Mac heaved up what little water he'd consumed the day before. "Don't drink seawater," Jack warned. "I know you're thirsty, but seawater will kill you faster than no water at all." Mac wiped his mouth with a shaking hand. "How long before they search for us?" "They probably started yesterday." Jack checked his compass. They drifted west during the night, pushed by current and wind. Maybe 10 miles. That put them 20 miles from their crash site. Every mile they drifted made them harder to find. "But the Pacific is big, really big. We could be out here a while." Phillips was worse than Mac. His shoulder throbbed constantly, and he developed a fever during the night. Jack rationed out 2 ounces of water for each man. They drank it slowly, trying to make it last, but it disappeared too fast. 6 tins left. 4 days of water if they were careful. 3 if the heat got worse. "We need to catch fish," Phillips said through cracked lips. "Or rainwater. Something." Jack baited the fishing line again, this time with a piece of fabric from his shirt. He lowered it into the water and waited. The sharks were still there, deeper now, but still circling. If a fish took the bait, would the sharks take the fish? Would they take the whole line? He didn't know, but doing nothing guaranteed they'd starve. This story takes time to craft. If you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Day 2 started with Mac vomiting over the side of the raft. The heat, the constant motion of the waves, and fear had pushed him past his limit. Jack watched helplessly as Mac heaved up what little water he'd consumed the day before. "Don't drink seawater," Jack warned. "I know you're thirsty, but seawater will kill you faster than no water at all." Mac wiped his mouth with a shaking hand. "How long before they search for us?" "They probably started yesterday." Jack checked his compass. They drifted west during the night, pushed by current and wind. Maybe 10 miles. That put them 22 miles from their crash site. Every mile they drifted made them harder to find. "But the Pacific is big. We could be out here a while." Phillips was worse than Mac. His shoulder throbbed constantly, and he'd developed a fever during the night. Infection, maybe, or just the body's response to trauma. Jack rationed out 2 ounces of water for each man. They drank it slowly, trying to make it last, but it disappeared too fast. 6 tins left. 4 days of water if they were careful, 3 if the heat got worse. "We need to catch fish," Phillips said through cracked lips. "Or rainwater. Something." Jack baited the fishing line with a piece of fabric torn from his shirt. He lowered it into the water and waited. The sharks were still there, deeper now, but still circling. If a fish took the bait, would the sharks take the fish first? Would they attack the line? He didn't know, but doing nothing guaranteed they'd starve. An hour passed. Nothing. The sun climbed higher, turning the rafts into rubber ovens. Jack's skin was already burning despite his flight jacket. Phillips had stripped to his undershirt, his exposed arms turning lobster red. Then the line jerked. Jack grabbed it, feeling something pull on the other end. Not big, maybe a pound or two. He started hauling it in, hand over hand, keeping tension on the line. The fish broke the surface 15 feet down, silver scales flashing in the sunlight. Some kind of mackerel or tuna? It fought hard, diving and twisting. "Don't lose it," Max said. He was leaning over the side, watching the fish rise. Come on, come on." Jack pulled steadily. The fish was 10 feet down now, 5 feet. He could see its eye, round and black, and panicked. Almost there. The shark came from below like a missile. It hit the fish in the explosion of white water and blood. The line went slack. Jack fell backward into the raft, the fishing line trailing limply in his hands. At the end, where the hook should have been, there was nothing. Just a clean bite through the line. "Son of a bitch," Max said. Jack coiled the remaining line. They'd lost the hook in 10 feet of line. The survival kit had 2 more hooks, but if the sharks kept stealing their catch, they'd run out of equipment before they caught anything. "We try again tonight," Jack said. "Maybe the sharks sleep." He didn't believe it, but he had to say something. Day 3 brought clouds. They appeared on the eastern horizon at dawn, dark and heavy, building into towers that reached halfway to heaven. Jack watched them come with a mixture of hope and fear. Rain meant water, but storms in the Pacific could flip their rafts, scatter their supplies, drown them just as surely as thirst. "How far?" Phillips asked. His fever had broken during the night, but he looked worse. Gaunt. His eye sockets had started to sink into his skull. 2 hours, maybe 3. Jack checked the survival kit, making sure everything was secured. The chocolate bars, the remaining water tins, the flare gun. If the storm hit hard, they'd lose anything that wasn't tied down. "We need to prepare." They used the parachute cord to lash the survival kit to Mac's raft. Jack tied the second chocolate bar to his own belt. Phillips couldn't help much with his bad shoulder, so Jack and Mac did most of the work. By the time they finished, the clouds had eaten half the sky. The wind hit first. It came in gusts that pushed the rafts across the water like toys. Then the temperature dropped. Jack felt it on his burned skin. A sudden coolness that would have been pleasant if it wasn't a warning of what was coming. "Get low," Jack ordered. "Hold on to the ropes. Don't let go no matter what." The rain started as a few fat drops. Then it opened up completely. Jack had been in rainstorms before, but nothing like this. The rain fell so hard it felt like fists pounding against his back. It filled the rafts with water within seconds. They had to bail constantly just to keep from sinking. But it was fresh water. Clean, pure, drinkable water falling from the sky. "Drink," Jack shouted over the roar of the storm. He opened his mouth and tilted his head back. The water tasted like salvation. It poured down his throat, more water than he could swallow. He let it run over his face, washing away days of salt and blood and grime. Mac was doing the same, gulping water as fast as it fell. Phillips had pulled off his undershirt and was wringing it into his mouth, catching what he could. They were getting soaked, getting pounded by the storm, but they were drinking, finally drinking. The waves came next. They built slowly at first, 3-footers that rocked the rafts but didn't threaten them. Then 4 feet, 5 feet. The rafts rose up the face of each wave and slid down the back, a roller coaster ride that made Jack's stomach lurch. A 6-foot wave lifted them high enough that Jack could see the horizon tilt crazily. At the top, suspended for just a moment, he saw lightning strike the water a mile away. The thunder followed immediately, a crack so loud it hurt his ears. "Hold on!" Jack grabbed the rope with both hands as the raft plunged down the back of the wave. Water crashed over the bow, filling the raft to the rim. He bailed frantically with cupped hands, throwing water over the side as fast as he could. Another wave, bigger this time, 7 feet, maybe 8. The raft climbed at a steep angle, nearly vertical. Jack's raft tipped at the crest. For one terrible second, he was looking straight down at the trough below, at Phillips and Mac's raft already sliding down the face. Then his raft went over. He fell forward, still gripping the rope, as the raft tumbled end over end. Water surrounded him. He couldn't tell which way was up. The rope burned his palms as the raft jerked and spun in the current. His head broke the surface. He gasped, pulling air into his lungs, and looked around frantically. His raft was upside down, the yellow bottom pointing at the sky. He grabbed the side and tried to flip it, but another wave hit before he could. It drove him under again, tumbling him like laundry in a washing machine. When he surfaced the second time, Phillips was shouting his name. "Here!" Jack's voice came out as a croak. He couldn't see them through the rain and spray. "I'm here. Swim to us." Jack oriented himself and started swimming. His arms felt like lead. His flight jacket dragged at him, waterlogged and heavy. He should have taken it off days ago, but it was the only protection he had from the sun. Now it was trying to kill him. A wave lifted him up. At the crest, he saw Phillips and Mac 20 yards away. Their raft was still upright, but barely. Mac was bailing water with both hands, while Phillips tried to keep them pointed into the waves. Jack swam harder, fighting the current, fighting the waves. 10 yards, 5 yards. Phillips reached over the side and grabbed his jacket, hauling him in. Jack collapsed in the bottom of the raft, coughing up seawater, shaking with cold and exhaustion. "Where's your raft?" Mac shouted. Jack looked back. His raft was gone. Just gone. Somewhere in those waves, separated by the parachute cord that must have snapped, and with it went half their supplies. "The survival kit," Jack managed. Mac held it up, still lashed to his raft, still intact. But Jack's chocolate bar was gone. The one he'd tied to his belt had been ripped away by the waves. They were down to one raft, one chocolate bar, and whatever water tins remained in the survival kit. The storm raged for another hour. They took turns bailing, staying low, riding each wave as it came. Gradually, the waves got smaller. The rain eased to a drizzle, then stopped completely. The clouds broke apart, revealing patches of blue sky and sudden, blinding sunlight. Jack checked the survival kit with numb fingers. 4 water tins left. They'd lost 2 in the storm. The fishing line was still there, 1 hook remaining. The flare gun and shells were soaked, but might still work if they dried out. The signal mirror had a crack across one corner, but was still usable. "How bad?" Phillips asked. "Bad." Jack squeezed water from his jacket. "We're down to 1 raft, 1 chocolate bar, 4 tins of water. We lost most of our equipment." Mac was staring at the empty ocean around them. "We're going to die out here, aren't we?" Jack wanted to say no, wanted to give them hope, but he was too tired to lie. "We're not dead yet," Jack finally said. He sat up and looked at both of them. "Count the days, 3 days. We've survived 3 days. That's 3 days the sharks didn't get us. 3 days we didn't drown. 3 days we're still breathing." 3 days closer to dying, Max said, or 3 days closer to rescue. Jack checked his compass again. They drifted further west during the storm, maybe another 15 miles. They were at least 35 miles from their crash site now. The search area was growing every hour they drifted. "Listen to me, both of you. We survived by not giving up. That's it. That's the only rule that matters." Phillips nodded slowly. Mac just stared at the water. That afternoon, something miraculous happened. A bird appeared, an albatross, huge and white, circling overhead. It called out with a harsh cry and descended lower, curious about the raft and its occupants. "Don't move," Jack whispered. "If it lands, we grab it." The albatross circled twice more, then landed on the bow of the raft with surprising grace. It folded its massive wings and looked at them with dark, intelligent eyes. It was close enough to touch. Jack lunged. His hands closed around the bird's body, and it exploded into motion, wings beating against his face, beak stabbing at his hands. But he held on. Phillips grabbed its neck and twisted hard. The bird went limp. They sat there breathing hard, staring at the dead albatross in Jack's hands. It was heavy, maybe 10 pounds of meat and fat and calories. "Thank God," Max said quietly. "We're not dead yet," Jack finally said. He sat up and looked at both of them. "Count the days, 3 days. We've survived 3 days. That's 3 days the sharks didn't get us. 3 days we didn't drown. 3 days we're still breathing. 3 days closer to dying," Max said, or 3 days closer to rescue. Jack checked his compass again. They drifted further west during the storm, maybe another 15 miles. They were 35 miles from their crash site now. The search area was growing every hour they drifted. Listen to me, both of you. We survive by not giving up. That's it. That's the only rule that matters. Phillips nodded slowly. Mac just stared at the water. That afternoon, something miraculous happened. A bird appeared, an albatross, huge and white, circling overhead. It called out with a harsh cry and descended lower, curious about the raft and its occupants. "Don't move," Jack whispered. "If it lands, we grab it." The albatross circled twice more, then landed on the bow of the raft with surprising grace. It folded its massive wings and looked at them with dark, intelligent eyes. It was close enough to touch. Jack lunged. His hands closed around the bird's body and it exploded into motion, wings beating against his face, beak stabbing at his hands. But he held on. Phillips grabbed its neck and twisted hard. The bird went limp. They sat there breathing hard, staring at the dead albatross in Jack's hands. It was heavy, maybe 10 pounds of meat and fat and calories. "Thank God," Mac said quietly. Jack used the knife to butcher the bird. He'd never done this before, but hunger made him learn fast. He cut away the breast meat first, slicing thin strips that they ate raw. The meat was tough and fishy and tasted like the best meal Jack had ever eaten. They ate slowly, chewing each piece thoroughly, making it last. They saved the organs, the heart, the liver, the gizzard. Jack cut them into pieces and they ate those too. Nothing went to waste. The bones they used for fishing hooks, carving them into crude points with the knife. The feathers they saved for bait. Even the blood they caught in cupped hands and drank. By sunset, the albatross was gone, except for its largest bones and some feathers. Jack's hands were covered in blood and bird fat. His stomach, empty for 3 days, cramped as it tried to process real food. "How long will that last us?" Phillips asked. "Maybe 3 days if we're careful with what's left." Jack wrapped the remaining meat in a piece of cloth from his shirt. "We need to catch fish now. The bird meat makes good bait." That night, Jack fished with renewed hope. He baited the bone hook with a strip of albatross meat and lowered it into the dark water. The sharks were still there. He could feel them circling, but the bird had given them a chance. Food meant energy. Energy meant they could keep fighting. An hour after sunset, the line jerked. Jack pulled it in carefully, steadily, ready to fight for whatever was on the other end. The fish was small, maybe a foot long, some kind of pilot fish or mackerel. Jack hauled it up fast, racing the sharks, and grabbed it with his bare hands before anything could steal it. The fish thrashed in his grip, scales slippery and cold. He killed it with a quick blow against the side of the raft. "Got one," he said, holding it up in the moonlight. It wasn't much, but it was something. They ate it immediately, splitting it 3 ways. The meat was raw and tough, but after days of starvation, it tasted perfect. Jack ate his portion slowly, chewing every bite, feeling the protein hit his empty stomach. His body was burning through muscle mass, cannibalizing itself to stay alive. Every calorie mattered now. By day 7, they'd established a routine. Fish at night when the sharks seemed less aggressive. Ration water carefully, 2 ounces per man per day. Bail the raft every few hours as it took on water through tiny leaks. Use the signal mirror whenever they heard aircraft, which was never. Mac was falling apart. He'd stopped talking on day 5. Now he just sat in the raft, staring at nothing, his lips moving in silent conversation with people who weren't there. Jack had seen it in training films. Exposure psychosis, the mind breaking under stress it wasn't designed to handle. "Mac," Jack said on the morning of day 8. "Look at me." Mac's eyes focused slowly, like he was surfacing from underwater. "Yeah, you still with us? I'm here." But his voice sounded distant, disconnected. "I saw my mother last night. She was standing on the water telling me to come home. That wasn't your mother. That was dehydration and sun exposure." Jack grabbed his shoulder. "Stay in the present. Stay with me and Phillips. We're real. We're here." Mac nodded, but Jack could see he'd already drifted away again. Phillips wasn't much better. His shoulder had healed enough to use, but infections had started in the saltwater sores covering his body. Red streaks ran from some of the wounds, tracking up his arms and legs. Blood poisoning, maybe. Without antibiotics, there was nothing Jack could do except keep the wounds clean with seawater and hope Phillips's immune system could fight it off. "How many days?" Phillips asked that afternoon. 8. Jack checked the water supply. They were down to 2 tins. 1 tin per day split 3 ways meant maybe 3 more days of water. After that, they'd be in real trouble. "We've made it 8 days. Doesn't feel like an achievement." It is. Jack meant it. Every day they survived was a day closer to rescue, or at least that's what he told himself. The truth was they were drifting further from the shipping lanes, further from any hope of being spotted. The Pacific was eating them slowly, one day at a time. That night, Jack heard the aircraft. It was distant, just the faint buzz of engines somewhere to the north. He grabbed the signal mirror and aimed it toward the sound, catching moonlight and flashing it in the direction of the plane. 3 short flashes, 3 long, 3 short. SOS in Morse code. The engine sound faded. The plane never changed course. Day 15 brought desperation. They'd run out of water 3 days earlier. Jack had tried everything. They'd caught rainwater from their shirts during brief showers, but it wasn't enough. They'd sucked moisture from fish they caught, but that barely wet their mouths. Thirst was killing them faster than starvation ever could. Mac had stopped responding entirely. He lay in the bottom of the raft with his eyes open, breathing but not present. His lips were cracked and bleeding. His tongue had swollen so large he couldn't close his mouth. Jack tried to give him water from a small rain shower, but Mac couldn't swallow anymore. "He's dying," Phillips said. His own voice came out as a rasp, barely audible. "I know." Jack felt helpless. After 2 weeks of fighting, of surviving impossible odds, Mac was slipping away, and there was nothing Jack could do to stop it. "We just need rain. One good storm and we can rehydrate him." "Jack," Phillips met his eyes. "He's already gone. Look at him." Jack looked. Phillips was right. Mac's chest rose and fell, but his eyes were vacant. Empty. Whatever made Mac who he was had already left. His body just hadn't figured it out yet. Mac died that afternoon. He took one breath, then another, then nothing. No final words, no dramatic moment. He just stopped. Jack checked for a pulse and found nothing. They sat with the body for an hour, neither man speaking. Finally, Phillips said, "We have to put him over." "I know." Jack couldn't bear to say it, but keeping a dead body in their small raft wasn't an option. The tropical heat would make decomposition happen fast, and the smell would attract sharks. "Help me." They lifted Mac's body together. He weighed almost nothing, reduced to skin and bones after 15 days at sea. Jack said a quick prayer, something he hadn't done since childhood, and they lowered Mac into the water. The body floated for a moment, face down, arms spread. Then a shark appeared from below. It bumped the body once, testing. Jack and Phillips watched in horror as 3 more sharks arrived. Within seconds, Mac's body was gone, pulled under by thrashing tails and dark shapes. "Jesus Christ," Phillips whispered. Jack turned away. He'd seen men die in combat, seen planes explode and crews incinerated. But this was different. This was watching a friend's body become food for animals that had been stalking them for 2 weeks. It felt wrong. Obscene. That night, Jack and Phillips didn't speak. They lay in opposite ends of the raft, staring at stars that seemed impossibly bright and impossibly distant. Jack's mind kept replaying Mac's death, kept seeing those sharks pulling him under. He wondered if that would be his own fate, if Phillips's fate, if they'd both end up as shark food in the end. "Jack," Phillips said around midnight. "Yeah. Thank you for trying to save him." "I didn't save him. You tried. That matters." Phillips was quiet for a moment. "If I don't make it, don't blame yourself for that either." "You'll make it," Jack said, but his voice lacked conviction. Day 20 brought hallucinations. Jack saw islands on the horizon that disappeared when he blinked. He heard voices calling his name from beneath the water. Once he was convinced their B-24 was floating beside them, perfectly intact, waiting for them to climb aboard. "Do you see it?" he asked Phillips. "See what?" The plane, it's right there. Jack pointed at empty ocean. Phillips grabbed his arm. There's no plane, Jack. You're dehydrating. Your brain's playing tricks. Jack blinked and the plane vanished. He realized with cold clarity that he was losing his mind the same way Mac had. The sun, the thirst, the endless days were breaking something fundamental inside him. He forced himself to focus on real things. The raft, Phillips, the survival kit, things he could touch and verify. Keep me honest, Jack said. If I start seeing things, tell me they're not real. I will. You do the same for me. They made a pact that day. Reality checks every few hours, confirming what was real and what wasn't. It was the only way to stay sane. Day 20 brought hallucinations. Jack saw islands on the horizon that disappeared when he blinked. He heard voices calling his name from beneath the water. Once, he was convinced their B-24 was floating beside them, perfectly intact, waiting for them to climb aboard. Do you see it? He asked Phillips. See what? The plane. It's right there. Jack pointed at empty ocean. Phillips grabbed his arm. There's no plane, Jack. You're dehydrating. Your brain's playing tricks. Jack blinked and the plane vanished. He realized with cold clarity that he was losing his mind the same way Mac had. The sun, the thirst, the endless days were breaking something fundamental inside him. He forced himself to focus on real things. The raft, Phillips, the survival kit. Things he could touch and verify. Keep me honest, Jack said. If I start seeing things, tell me they're not real. I will. You do the same for me. They made a pact that day. Reality checks every few hours, confirming what was real and what wasn't. It was the only way to stay sane. By day 30, they'd stopped counting. Time had become meaningless. There was only sun and night, thirst and hunger, pain and numbness. Jack had lost at least 50 pounds. His ribs showed through his skin like prison bars. Phillips looked like a skeleton wrapped in leather. But they were still alive, still fighting. Then on day 47, Jack saw a ship. At first, he thought it was another hallucination, a dark shape on the horizon, too far away to identify. He didn't say anything to Phillips, didn't want to get his hopes up over something that might disappear like all the other phantom islands and planes. But it didn't disappear. It got bigger. Phillips, Jack said quietly, tell me what you see on the horizon. Phillips squinted against the sun. A ship. I see a ship. You're sure? I'm sure. Phillips started laughing, a sound that came out more like a croak. Jack, there's a ship. They grabbed the signal mirror. Jack aimed it at the vessel, flashing SOS over and over. The ship was maybe 5 miles away, close enough to see but still impossibly far. If it passed them by, if it didn't see their signals, they'd never get another chance. The ship kept coming. Closer. 3 miles. 2 miles. Jack could make out details now. It was painted gray, military, and flying a flag that made his stomach drop. The rising sun emblem of Imperial Japan. No, Phillips said. No, no, no. Jack kept signaling anyway. They had no choice. It was capture or death. And after 47 days at sea, even capture looked like salvation. The ship altered course, heading directly toward them. Within 20 minutes, it pulled alongside their raft. Japanese sailors looked down at them from the deck. One shouted something in Japanese. Another pointed a rifle at Jack's head. We surrender, Jack said, raising his hands. We're American airmen. We surrender. They hauled Jack and Phillips aboard with ropes. Jack's legs collapsed the moment he tried to stand on solid deck. He hadn't walked in 47 days. A Japanese officer stood over Jack, speaking rapid words he couldn't understand. The man's face showed disgust. Jack realized what he must look like. 50 pounds underweight, skin burned black by the sun, covered in open sores, barely human. He probably smelled worse than he looked. They separated Jack and Phillips immediately. Guards dragged Jack below deck and threw him into a small compartment that might have been a storage closet. The door slammed shut. Darkness. The ship's engines vibrated through the metal walls. Jack lay on the floor, too weak to sit up. For the first time in 47 days, he wasn't exposed to sun, wasn't pitching on ocean swells, wasn't staring at endless water. The relief was so overwhelming he started crying. He couldn't stop. All the fear and pain and desperation he'd held back for 7 weeks came pouring out. Someone opened the door. Light flooded in. A guard stood there with a cup of water and a bowl of rice. He set them on the floor and left without speaking. Jack crawled to the water and drank it in 3 gulps. The rice he ate with his hands, cramming it into his mouth so fast he nearly choked. His stomach cramped immediately, rejecting food after weeks of near starvation. But he kept it down through sheer willpower. The ship sailed for 2 days. During that time, Jack saw no one except the guard who brought food and water twice daily. He had no idea where they were going or what would happen when they arrived. He didn't know if Phillips was even alive. The uncertainty was almost worse than the ocean had been. On the 3rd day, the engines stopped. Jack heard activity above deck, shouting, the sound of ropes and chains. They'd reached port. Guards came for him. They hauled him up onto the deck where sunlight blinded him. When his eyes adjusted, he saw land, an island with a small military installation, barbed wire fences, guard towers, other prisoners in ragged uniforms moving supplies under armed supervision, a POW camp. They marched Jack and Phillips off the ship at gunpoint. Phillips could barely walk. His infections had worsened during the voyage, and fever made him delirious. Jack supported him as best he could with his own limited strength. "Where are we?" Phillips mumbled. "I don't know." Jack looked around at the camp. Maybe 200 prisoners, all Allied forces from the look of their uniforms. American, British, Australian. All of them looked half-starved and beaten down. "But we're alive. That's what matters." An officer approached them. He spoke English with a heavy accent. "You are prisoners of the Imperial Japanese Army. You will work. You will obey all orders. Disobedience means death. Do you understand?" "Yes," Jack said. "Your names." Lieutenant Jack Marrow, serial number 416513. Lieutenant Russell Phillips, serial number 417298. The officer wrote this down in a notebook. "You will be assigned to Barracks 3. Work detail begins at dawn. You get 1 bowl of rice per day, 1 cup of water. This is more than you deserve." They were led to a bamboo structure that served as the barracks. Inside the barracks, other prisoners stared at them with hollow eyes. An Australian sergeant approached, looking Jack and Phillips up and down. "Bloody hell," he said. "You two look worse than the rest of us, and that's saying something. Where'd they pick you up?" "Pacific," Jack said. "We were adrift for 47 days. The sergeant's eyes widened. 47 days in a raft. Started with 3 men, lost 1 to dehydration. Christ. The sergeant helped Phillips to an empty spot on the floor. There were no beds, just bare bamboo slats. "I'm Bill Cooper. Been here 8 months. You'll want to know the rules if you plan on surviving." Jack sat down heavily. His legs were shaking from the short walk. "Tell me." "First rule, don't make eye contact with the guards. They see it as disrespect and they'll beat you for it. Second, eat whatever they give you, no matter how rotten. Food is survival. Third, the work details are brutal, but if you can't work, they shoot you. I've seen it happen." Cooper lowered his voice. "Fourth, some men here have given up. They're dead. They just don't know it yet. Stay away from them. Despair is contagious." "What kind of work?" "Loading supplies, building fortifications. Whatever they need. 12-hour days in the sun with 1 bowl of rice and 1 cup of water. Men drop dead regularly." Cooper looked at Phillips, who had already passed out from fever. "Your friend there won't last a week in his condition." "He'll last." Jack said it with more confidence than he felt. They'd survived 47 days at sea. They could survive this. They had to. That night, Jack lay awake listening to the sounds of the camp. Men coughing, someone crying quietly in the darkness. The footsteps of guards outside. It was different from the ocean. There the threat was natural, impersonal. Here it was human, deliberate. The cruelty had a face and a voice, but Jack was still alive. Phillips was still alive. And as long as they were breathing, they had a chance. The next morning, guards came at dawn. They kicked men awake and herded them outside for roll call. Jack supported Phillips, who could barely stand. They lined up with the other prisoners in the camp yard while a Japanese officer counted them. Then came the work detail assignments. Jack was assigned to a group hauling bags of rice from the dock to the storage warehouse. Each bag weighed maybe 50 pounds. In his current condition, carrying one bag felt like carrying 100. But he did it. He hefted the bag onto his shoulder and walked 100 yards to the warehouse, then back for another. By noon, he'd collapsed twice. Guards beat him with bamboo rods until he got back up. His back was bleeding. His shoulders were raw. But he kept moving, because stopping meant dying, and he hadn't survived 47 days at sea just to die in a prison camp. Phillips was on a different detail, clearing brush from around the camp perimeter. Jack saw him once during the day, moving slowly with a machete, his face gray with fever. But he was moving. That was something. That night they received their ration, one bowl of rice with some kind of vegetable mixed in. It wasn't enough to sustain a man doing 12 hours of hard labor, but it was more than they'd had on the raft. If this story meant something to you, drop a comment and share it. It helps the next person find their way here.